And now we're going into the tabernacle.
Alright, so now we enter into the courtyard. The tabernacle divides very easily, very simply into three areas. You have the courtyard, where we just entered right now. The building is divided into two, the holy and then the holy of holies. Okay, so you have courtyard, holy, holy of holies. The entrances to these three areas are always from the east. You're always entering from the east, you're always walking towards the west. When walking through, walking towards the east when leaving. Okay, the entrances are also always clearly marked with a colored screen, a colored curtain. You see there's white linen going around, but the screen, the entrance, is a colorful one. It's made out of white, blue, purple, and red linen. The second screen is behind the 5 pillars over there. That's the entrance to the holy place. The third screen is behind the 4 pillars that you can't see from here because it's in front of the inside the building, and that's the entrance into the holy of holies. So past the first screen, most likely only the Levites could enter. Past the second screen, only the priests. Past the third screen, only the high priest. It's actually divided really simply, right? The first thing that you would see when you're stepping into the courtyard is the altar. The altar was in front of the gate. You have the building, what's actually usually referred to as the tent. That's in the back part of the courtyard. And then between the altar and the tent, you have the wash basin, which we'll get to next. First of all, just a couple of measurements. The courtyard is 50 cubits by 100 cubits and 5 cubits high. The altar of sacrifice was 5 cubits by 5 cubits and 3 cubits high. The building in the back, we talked about the tent, that's 10 cubits high. So this is life size. These are roughly the sizes from the Bible. All right? Through the tabernacle, through the altar, the work that's being done over here, this is God's way to show, explain, but also to demonstrate to the children of Israel things that He needs them to understand. Things that we can just read about today, that we can read about in the Bible. If you want to know something about what God promised, or didn't promise for that matter, or what God hates, or what He likes, or what sin is, or what holiness is, you can just read it in the Bible. They don't have Bibles. What they do have is this, though. And they can kind of see it in a way life-size and get all the lessons that are actually very important. The key lessons are actually shown here as well. So over here, the altar, which literally means to cover. God says that the life is in the blood. This is Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11. The life is the blood. And I am giving you this blood onto the altar for the atonement, which means to cover your souls. In fact, it doesn't use the word soul and life. It uses the word soul only. So it says the life is the soul, and the soul and the life, the blood, is used in order to cover your souls. And then it says, because only blood can provide the covering for the soul. I won't get into it too much, but in the book of Genesis, after the first sin, you have the coverings, right, that are made for Adam and Eve, the tunics of skin. An innocent animal dies in order to provide the coverings for the shame of Adam and Eve as a result of their sin. Same thing that's really happening over here. It's the same idea. Okay, so this is the covenant that's provided for the people by the life of the animal, again the blood. So the priest takes that blood, puts it on the 4 horns of the altar, and the rest of the blood will pour around the altar at its base. Okay? There are some more things that he will do with the sin sacrifice, of course, but most importantly, I want you to remember the use of the blood over here. We'll talk more about this later. This is kind of the beginning understandings of what blood is, and I want to use it later when we're talking about the Day of Atonement and some more things as well. All right? So let's continue now to the wash basin. I think it's directly towards the east from the camp, so it's on the camp towards the east, and that's the place where they would also be looking out the ash from the altar, and also burning it. There's a fire going on. Alright, so here we have the wash basin. We actually don't know a lot about the wash basin. Okay, we kind of assume it's round because the temple wash basin was round. But here it doesn't ever say that, doesn't ever say square, round, and no measurements or description of what it actually looked like. We actually know, in this case, we know a lot more about the temple wash basin than we do about the tabernacle wash basin. We do obviously know that there was a wash basin here because it explains it, but only about 4 verses, so we just doesn't say a lot about it. We know that the wash basin was placed between the altar and the holy place. It was made out of copper. The Levites are the ones who are in charge of filling this water, and the priests are the ones who actually use the water. They use the water to wash their hands and to wash their feet before they can sacrifice and before they can enter the building. This one. Alright, so now we entered into the holy place. We can see a little bit clearer now. Between the first screen and the second screen is the courtyard. Between the second screen and the third screen is the holy place. And past the third screen is the Holy of Holies. So past the first screen, Levites, past the second screen, priests, past the third screen, only the high priest. All right, first of all, the thing you'd probably notice when you're entering into the holy place, the first thing you'd probably look at is the menorah. The menorah was very beautiful, but most importantly, it was giving light. That's probably why it would grab your attention. It was very beautiful. It was made out of gold. It had decorations on it, right? So the menorah, or its base, sometimes referred to, is the centerpiece over here with the 3 branches off of either side, and a flower and almond decorating those branches and the menorah itself, with 7 oil lamps on the top giving light. And this is the only source of light in the room. The priests enter here and they tend to the lamp. Fill the oil, trim the wick, clean it, whatever needs to be done daily, right? So this isn't some once a week thing. So the priest actually enter into this place every day. So just remember that. So when you're entering into the holy place, it's always going to be on your left, okay? Because it's always against the southern wall. We already talked about the directions. It's east, west. The menorah is against the south, and directly in front of the menorah, against the northern wall, was the table of showbread. The table was made out of acacia wood. Do you all know what acacia wood is? It was made out of acacia wood. It was covered with gold. Here we have measurements. It was a cubit by 2 cubits by a cubit and a half. And it had 12 breads on it. This bread is obviously a reminder of the 12 tribes. The way I like to explain what the bread means is the same as if you were invited to someone's house for dinner, and the host had a table that was set with 12 plates and cups and bowls and 12 chairs around the table. Just from looking at the table, you would assume, you'd understand that 12 people are coming over, right? This is the same idea. This is the house of God. This is the table of God, and it's a table that is set for 12. Who are those 12? God made a covenant with those 12 tribes, and they're welcome into his presence to eat from his table. Right? It's a very powerful symbol. You'd be very proud to say, if you met somebody that you greatly admired, whoever it is, famous person, celebrity, politician, whoever it is, if you're walking the street and you meet the person, you'd be very happy to show your friends that you got a picture with them. You'd be way more proud to tell your friends that you were invited to their house and you ate from their table surrounded by their children or something like that. So again, this is the same symbol. What if you said that you ate from the table of the God of the universe? That's also a pretty cool symbol, right? So again, it's a symbol though. It's not supposed to, the bread is not supposed to be eaten by all the people outside. It's not, that's not what it's for. It's just for symbolizing it. That's why it's just the representatives of the tribes, who are the priests, who are doing this work on their behalf. They're the ones who would enter into the holy place every Sabbath, and they would eat the bread before God. Okay, so that's the showbread. So let's get to the workers here. So here we have the clothing described for the priest and for the high priest. So actually both the priest and the high priest wore some clothing that was similar to the other. For example, they both wore white hats, they both wore white tunics, white pants, and colored sashes. But in addition to this clothing, the high priest also wore a golden band on his forehead that says, "Holy to the Lord," or "Holiness to the Lord." Over his white clothing, he wore a blue robe, and on the hem of the blue robe, there was a golden bell and pomegranate. Over his upper body, the high priest wore the ephod, which is probably the most iconic thing about the clothing of the high priest. That's probably one of the most famous things about the tabernacle in general. The tabernacle, everybody knows the breastplate of the high priest, very recognizable. The tabernacle is a very visual place. There are many lessons to be learned just from looking at the thing, whether it's the blood on the altar, the washing, the light, the bread that we see over here, right? There's kind of a lot to look at. Over here is a very clear depiction of how he represents the tribes, how he represents the nation of Israel. Okay? So the ephod had 2 stones on it, with 6 names engraved onto every stone of the shoulder. And then it's holding up the breastplate, which had 12 stones on it, and then there was 1 name engraved onto every one of those 12 stones. These names, again, representing the nation of Israel. It's actually not clear exactly what the names were. Could be including Joseph, could be including the sons of Joseph, could be including Levi, could not be including Levi. It's a little bit difficult to say. We're not exactly sure what the names were. We know there were 12, but also the sons of Israel, right? The sons of Jacob are 12, and also the tribes are 12. It's just that they're not exactly the same names. Right. It doesn't really matter. The point, obviously, is that he's representing the nation as a whole. What the names were exactly is secondary in importance. Anyway, he's representing the nation of Israel. That's his job as the high priest. Also, look where the names are placed. Symbolic places that still mean something to us today. On the shoulders, on the heart, right? It actually says on the heart. So he carries Israel on his shoulders and on his heart as far as there's responsibility, as far as his work doing on behalf of the people who are outside, right? The priests also have work to do. They also are busy. They also can sacrifice, but it's the responsibility of the high priest. It actually says that because of the sins of a priest, he can actually bring blame upon the people. So that's actually a pretty serious responsibility. He's got a lot on his shoulders. Now, once a year, he would enter into the Holy of Holies. He's the only person who actually could enter into the Holy of Holies. That comes around once a year on the Day of Atonement. Yom Kippur, is that familiar, Yom Kippur? We usually use Yom Kippur nowadays, but it's actually not called that originally. It's called Yom HaKippurim. And Kippurim is just plural. So it's actually called the Day of Atonements in Hebrew, the Day of Atonements. On that day, there are many sacrifices. And we also already said that the word atonement means to cover. So it's called the Day of Coverings. The coverings made on behalf of the souls of all the people. Okay? On that day, there are many sacrifices. That's why it's in plural, not only one sacrifice. Okay? In fact, he takes blood of 2 different sacrifices into the Holy of Holies. One was for his sins, and one was for the sins of Israel. Okay? So his sins, and really his house as well, the people of his house, his children, who are also priests. So that's one for him. And then the goat was for the sins of Israel. The bull was his sin sacrifice. The goat was Israel's sin sacrifice. So both of those were taken in. The blood of both of those were taken in. Before we can enter, now we just want to explain about the altar briefly before we enter. The altar was made out of acacia wood, like most holy items. It was covered with gold as well. It was cubit by 2 cubits, and it had fire in it. And this fire was always brought from outside. I think we did talk a little bit about the eternal flame from the altar of sacrifice. Only that fire could be brought over here. That might remind you a little bit of a story maybe of the 2 older sons of Aaron, Nadav and Abihu, who brought a strange fire, right? So that's what it's talking about. They didn't use the fire they were supposed to. They brought a strange fire, which really means any other fire, okay? And possibly for this reason, possibly to light the incense. I don't think it actually clearly says what it was specifically for, but it just says that they brought a strange fire. Anyway, the fire is supposed to be brought over here and then used to light incense every day. This also is something that happens every day, okay? But once a year, on the Day of Atonement, it also has to be lit inside the Holy of Holies before he goes inside, before he enters. Okay? And we'll actually continue with that inside. Just remember that he's wearing only white when he goes inside. He doesn't wear the stones, the gold, the colors. He wears just the white clothing, and then he goes inside with the blood from those 2 sacrifices.
Whatever it is, we're for it.
We're in 2,521. Oh, yeah, it is.
There's so many land formations.
There's so many pictures of indigenous tribes.
Oh. Yeah, black.
Where'd it go? Oh, wow.
Yeah, what you were talking about.
Our next one. Scary. I know. Yeah, me either.
This is Zen. So apparently the wilderness of Zen is talked about in the Bible. So we're getting a good look. There are sheep out there, but you can't see them. And then all those little bushes, whatever those are. The wilderness of Zen. Caesarea by the sea. Yeah.
The other roof also.
Herod's Pool.
Where's the swimming pool? Ah,
It was an infinity pool.
yeah, yeah.
The truth is there are two aqueducts on top, two water systems, because at the moment you need
And here we are to the Church of the Annunciation.
na dole. That one house, according to some people, tradition and maybe a bit more than tradition, it will be pointed out as the house of Annunciation. Now,
This is the view from Scott's Hotel in Tiberias. Looking out over the garden, over the Sea of Galilee, and according to my friend here, the Golan Heights.
There's trees and some smoke coming from behind. Do we see it? That area we're going to be around there is called Mount of Beatitude. We will be tomorrow around there. Is that the correct mountain? The answer is I don't know. It's a traditional mountain. But that is the area where we are going to drive afterwards with the bus to there. Why? Because Chorazin, Capernaum, and all that area is around there. So what you see is the Jewish area in Jesus' period. Look at my hand just a minute. This way, over there, is where Bethsaida is probably. Now Bethsaida is located in the place where the Jordan River enters to Sea of Galilee. So who brings water to Sea of Galilee is the Jordan River. And it goes from there, enters, bring water to here, and then the Jordan River continues on this side. So the Jordan River continues on that side and goes all the way to the Dead Sea. That is what I was telling you. We have a dam around there that maybe will be open in order to let more water flow toward the Dead Sea area. That is a possibility that might take place in this month.
The Sea of Galilee. All right, let's see if it's as dirty as people say it is.